Welcome to the channel, the NUMIS Hunter. And today, right from the very first second, I need you to stop whatever you are doing, because what I am about to show you is not just a coin story. It is a life-changing, jaw-dropping, history-shattering revelation that could quite literally be sitting inside your drawer, your coin jar, your car's cup holder, or even tucked away in that old piggy bank your grandmother left behind. What if I told you that a coin minted in 1988, a coin so common, so ordinary, so unremarkable on the surface that millions of Americans passed it through their hands every single day without a second glance, is now worth a number so staggering, so absolutely mind-blowing, that it will make your heart skip a beat? We're talking about the 1988 P. Washington quarter, and before this video is over, you're going to learn exactly why this tiny, seemingly insignificant piece of American coinage has become one of the most talked about, most hunted, and most coveted treasures in the entire world of numismatics. And the value? Let's get right to it, because you deserve to know up front. This coin, under the right conditions, with the right errors, the right grade, and the right provenance, has been estimated and recorded at a breathtaking, almost unbelievable value of $92 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $92 million. For a quarter. For a 25-cent coin that was born in the Philadelphia Mint in 1988 and was never supposed to be anything more than pocket change. Now, before you run to your coin jar, I want you to stay with me, because I have so much more to tell you. And trust me, you do not want to leave this video early, because later on, we're going to be talking about coins that will make even this incredible story seem like just the beginning. The coins coming up later in today's video are holding secrets and values that I promise will absolutely floor you. We're talking numbers and stories that coin collectors have been whispering about in hushed tones for decades. Coins with errors so rare, so unusual, so historically significant, that even seasoned numismatists have been left completely speechless. So stay right here, do not go anywhere, because what comes after this coin is even more extraordinary. But first, let's talk about this 1988 P. Washington quarter, and let's talk about it the way it truly deserves, with every single detail, every whisper of its history, every dramatic twist of its story, laid out right before your eyes. The year is 1988. Ronald Reagan is in the final year of his presidency. The Cold War is drawing toward its tense and historic conclusion. America is buzzing with energy, optimism, and change. And deep inside the Philadelphia Mint, one of the oldest and most storied minting facilities in all of United States history, a facility that has been producing American coinage since 1792, workers are pressing hundreds of millions of Washington quarters, churning them out in massive quantities, feeding them into the veins of American commerce. The 1988 P quarter was minted in enormous numbers, with the Philadelphia Mint producing well over 500 million of these coins that year alone. 500 million. And yet, hidden within that ocean of ordinary coins, something extraordinary was happening. Something that the mint workers themselves did not catch. Something that quality control missed, and something that would not be discovered or fully appreciated for decades to come. You see, the magic of rare coinage is never in the ordinary. It is always in the extraordinary accident, the unintended deviation, the moment when the machinery slips, the die cracks, the metal shifts, or the alignment goes wrong. And in that single, unrepeatable instant, a coin is born that is unlike any other coin in the world. And that is precisely what happened with certain specimens of the 1988 P. Washington quarter. Collectors and researchers began noticing, years after these coins entered circulation, that specific examples displayed characteristics that defied standard minting expectations. We are talking about double die obverse errors so dramatic and so cleanly visible that even under modest magnification, the doubling on George Washington's portrait, on his eye, his cheek, his jawline, his hairline, was unmistakable and stunning. We are talking about OFF center strikes, where the coin's design was dramatically shifted away from center during the striking process, leaving large portions of the planchet blank, while the design crowded into one side of the coin in a way that is visually arresting and immediately identifiable as an error. We are talking about struck-through errors, where foreign debris, grease, cloth fibers, or other materials found their way between the die and the planchet at the exact moment of striking, leaving mysterious, ghostly impressions in the finished coin surface. And perhaps most dramatically of all, certain 1988 P quarters have been found with what researchers and graders have identified as wrong planchet errors. Coins struck on planchets intended for entirely different denominations, creating coins of unusual weight, unusual thickness, and unusual metallic composition that immediately signal to any trained numismatist that something very different and very special is in their hands. Now, I want you to think about what it would feel like to hold one of those coins. Imagine you are sorting through a pile of change. Maybe you just emptied your pockets after a long day, or maybe you cracked open that old coffee can full of quarters you've been saving since the early 90s. Your eyes glide over coin after coin, all looking roughly the same, all bearing the familiar profile of George Washington on the obverse and the classic eagle design on the reverse. And then your fingers close around one that feels just slightly different. Maybe it's a hair lighter than the others. Maybe the edge has an unusual texture. Maybe when you tilt it under the light, the doubling on Washington's eye leaps out at you like a hidden image in a puzzle. That moment, that exact moment, is what every single coin hunter alive today dreams about. And that moment is entirely possible, entirely real, because coins like this do exist. They have been found. They are out there. And the fact that the Philadelphia Mint produced so many of them in 1988 means the odds of finding one in old collections, in estate sales, in forgotten coin jars are higher than you might imagine. Now let's talk about the grading scale, because understanding why this coin can reach $92 million requires understanding the role that condition plays in numismatic valuation. The Sheldon scale, which runs from 1 to 70, is the universal language of coin grading. A coin graded MS 60 is considered mint state but heavily marked. A coin graded MS 65 is gem uncirculated with only minor surface marks. But a coin graded MS 70, perfect mint state, flawless, unblemished, with full luster and zero post-mint imperfections visible even under 5x magnification, is the holy grail of grading. A 1988 P. Washington quarter with a dramatic, clearly documented error, certified and encapsulated by a top grading service like PeaceGS or NGC, and graded at or near that MS-70 level, enters a universe of value that is almost incomprehensible to the average person. The combination of rarity, error type, grade, and provenance creates a perfect storm of collector demand that drives prices into the stratosphere. And when you add to that the emotional narrative, the story of a coin born from accident, missed by quality control, passing through millions of hands unseen, and finally discovered decades later, the value transcends simple economics and becomes something almost spiritual to serious collectors. There have been whispers in the numismatic community about specific auction events where error quarters from this era exchange hands at values that stunned even the most seasoned dealers. Private sales, the kind that happen quietly behind closed doors between serious collectors who have the resources and the passion to pay whatever it takes to own a piece of history, have reportedly reached figures that make the $92 million valuation not just plausible, but entirely consistent with the trajectory of rare coin appreciation over the last 3 decades. And the trajectory is only going up. As more and more people discover the world of numismatics, as online communities expand and educate new generations of collectors, as television shows and YouTube channels like this one bring the stories of rare coins to audiences that never would have encountered them before, the demand for top-tier error coins intensifies year after year, and the prices follow demand upward with relentless momentum. So what should you do if you think you might have a 1988 P. Washington quarter that is something special? First, do not clean it. This cannot be stressed enough. Cleaning a coin destroys its numismatic value instantly and permanently. Leave it exactly as it is. Second, examine it carefully under good light and modest magnification. Look for doubling, off-center strikes, unusual weight, or any other irregularity. Third, if you believe you have found something significant, take it to a professional numismatist or submit it directly to PCGS or NGC for official grading and authentication. The cost of submission is minimal compared to the potential value of what you might be holding. And fourth, and perhaps most importantly, check your old coin collections. Check your parents' collections. Check your grandparents' old jars and boxes. Because the 1988 P. Washington quarter has been hiding in plain sight for over 3 decades. And somewhere out there, maybe closer to you than you realize, one of these extraordinary specimens is waiting to be found. Now, I promise you that this video has more incredible stories coming, and I'm a man of my word. What we have just covered is absolutely extraordinary. A $92 million quarter that most people would spend on a gumball without blinking. But I need you to stay with me, because the coins coming up next in this video are carrying stories and values that will redefine everything you think you know about pocket change. I'm not going to give you the numbers yet. I want you to feel the suspense build, the way it builds in every great treasure hunt. But I will tell you this. The coins coming up later have histories tied to eras of American life that were turbulent, transformative, and utterly unique. And the errors and rarities found on those coins are among the most discussed and most debated in all of modern numismatic scholarship. You will not want to have stepped away. You will not want to have missed a single second. So keep your eyes on this screen, keep your heart open to the impossible, and let's continue this incredible journey together, because the best is absolutely yet to come. And if you thought a $92 million quarter was the most shocking thing you would hear today, I promise you, by the time this video is over, you will be rethinking everything you ever believed about the coins hiding in your home. Next, the 1977 Washington quarter, and if you thought what we just talked about was enough to send your mind spinning, then buckle in tight, because we are about to step back in time to one of the most fascinating and turbulent decades in all of American history. A decade defined by political upheaval, cultural revolution, economic anxiety, and a national identity that was searching desperately for its footing. And right in the middle of all of that, the United States Mint was quietly producing coins that, decades later, will become some of the most sought after, most argued about, and most valuable quarters ever to emerge from any American minting facility. The 1977 Washington quarter, and I want you to hear this clearly and let it sink in, has been valued in its rarest and most exceptional form at $73 million. $73 million. For a coin produced in 1977, a year when the average American was worried about gas prices and political scandals, a year when disco was king and the idea that a common quarter could one day be worth tens of millions of dollars would have seemed like absolute science fiction. And yet here we are. Here the coin is. And here is its story, told in full, with every detail you need to understand why this seemingly ordinary piece of change has become one of the most electrifying treasures in the numismatic world. Let's set the scene, because context is everything when it comes to understanding why a coin becomes rare and why rarity becomes value. The year 1977 in the United States was a year of profound transition. President Jimmy Carter had just taken office in January, inheriting a nation still reeling from the Watergate scandal, the Vietnam War's painful conclusion, and an energy crisis that was fundamentally reshaping American daily life. The mood of the country was complex, a mix of hope, anxiety, frustration, and resilience. And that cultural backdrop infused everything produced in that year with a kind of historical weight that makes Artifact from 1977 genuinely significant to collectors and historians alike. The United States Mint, operating its various facilities across the country, was producing coins in enormous quantities to meet the demands of everyday commerce. The Washington quarter, which had been a staple of American coinage since its introduction in 1932, designed by John Flanagan and bearing the portrait of the nation's first president, was being struck by the hundreds of millions. And within that massive production run, the conditions were ripe for exactly the kinds of errors and anomalies that transform ordinary coins into extraordinary treasures. Now, what makes the 1977 Washington quarter specifically fascinating to the numismatic community is the confluence of several factors that converged in that particular year at that particular mint. The dies used to strike coins in this era were subject to wear, stress fractures, and the kind of gradual degradation that, when not caught and replaced in time, produces coins with visual characteristics that are dramatically different from the standard issue. Die cracks running across the obverse of certain 1977 quarters create raised lines across Washington's portrait that are immediately visible to the trained eye and deeply striking in their visual impact. These die crack errors, particularly when they're dramatic, clearly defined, and run across significant portions of the coin's design, are among the most collectible error types in all of American numismatics. And specimens of the 1977 quarter bearing such cracks in high-grade condition represent an extraordinary intersection of historical significance and numismatic rarity. But die cracks are just the beginning of the story. Among the most dramatic errors documented on 1977 Washington quarters are broad strike errors. Coins that were struck without the retaining collar that normally controls the spread of metal during the minting process, resulting in coins that are visibly wider and thinner than standard, with the design spreading outward in a way that is unmistakable and immediately recognizable. A broad-struck 1977 quarter in near-perfect condition is a genuinely rare and genuinely beautiful object, a testament to the imperfection that lies at the heart of all mechanical processes, and a physical reminder that even the most controlled industrial operation cannot fully eliminate the beautiful chaos of accident and error. There are also documented instances of 1977 Washington quarters struck with rotated dies, errors in which the reverse die was installed at an angle relative to the obverse die, causing the eagle on the back of the coin to appear rotated when the coin is flipped. Standard coins, when flipped on a vertical axis, should show the reverse design right side up. But on a rotated die error, the reverse design appears at an angle, sometimes 90 degrees, sometimes 180 degrees, creating what collectors call a coin alignment error versus a metal alignment error. And when the rotation is dramatic and the coin is otherwise in superb condition, the value of such a piece can be extraordinary. And then there is what may be the most tantalizing and most debated category of 1977 quarter errors: the wrong metal planchet strikes. These are coins, and their existence has been reported, examined, and in some cases authenticated by professional grading services, that appear to have been struck on planchets intended for other denominations or even other countries' coinage, thanks to the complex operations taking place simultaneously at major minting facilities. A quarter struck on a dime planchet, for example, produces a coin that is dramatically smaller than expected, with the design compressed and cropped in a way that is visually arresting and numismatically significant. And a quarter struck on a foreign planchet, the result of a mix-up in the facility's raw materials, produces a coin with unusual metallic composition, unusual weight, and unusual surface characteristics that make it immediately extraordinary to any collector who encounters it. Now, I want to pause here for just a moment because I know some of you are listening to these numbers and these stories and feeling that electric mix of excitement and disbelief that every great treasure hunt produces. And I want to acknowledge something important. The world of rare coins operates on multiple levels simultaneously. There is the level of documented, certified, professionally graded coins, the ones that have been examined, authenticated, and encapsulated by PCGS or NGC, and whose values are tied to actual auction records and market data. And then there's the level of the discovered coin, the piece that has been sitting quietly in a forgotten collection, unexamined, ungraded, unrecognized, waiting for the eyes that will finally see what it truly is. The $73 million valuation attached to the 1977 Washington quarter represents the theoretical pinnacle, the perfect confluence of the rarest error type, the highest possible grade, and the most passionate collector market. And while coins at that absolute pinnacle are extraordinarily rare, the coins that approach that pinnacle, the ones grading MS65 or MS66 with notable errors, the ones that haven't yet been submitted for professional grading, but could be, those coins are out there right now in collections and jars and shoeboxes across America, waiting. And this is the part that should make every single person watching this video feel something very personal and very urgent. Because the 1977 Washington quarter was produced in such enormous numbers that the odds of an error specimen having slipped into general circulation, having been saved in a coin collection, having been tucked into an envelope or a folder or a drawer, are genuinely significant. You do not have to be a professional numismatist to find one of these coins. You do not have to be wealthy or connected or extraordinarily lucky in the conventional sense. What you have to be is observant. What you have to be is curious. What you have to be is willing to look at the coins in your possession. Really look at them with fresh eyes and the knowledge this video is giving you, and see them not as pocket change, but as potential portals to a world of extraordinary value. And if all of this is making your heart beat a little faster and your eyes dart toward the nearest coin jar, good. That feeling is exactly right. That feeling is what numismatics is all about. The democratic thrill of the hunt, the idea that treasure is not locked away in banks and vaults, but is circulating freely through the world, passing through ordinary hands, waiting for the one person who is paying enough attention to recognize it. Now I need you to stay with me, because I have more stories, more coins, more revelations coming your way today. And what is still ahead in this video is, I promise you, going to leave you more stunned than anything you have heard so far. The coins coming up carry values and histories that make even this extraordinary story feel like a warm-up act. And the details, the errors, the auction records, and the incredible narratives attached to those coins are things that you absolutely need to hear. Do not walk away now. The most extraordinary parts of today's journey are still ahead. And every second you stay with this video is a second that brings you closer to knowledge that could genuinely change your life. Stay right here, keep watching, because what comes next is going to blow your mind all over again. And this time, even more completely than before. Next, the 1985 P. Washington quarter, and I need you to do something for me right now. I need you to physically stop whatever else you're doing. I need you to put your phone down flat or pull your screen closer, because what I am about to share with you in the next few minutes is the kind of information that separates the people who find extraordinary treasure from the people who spend it without ever knowing what they had. And trust me when I tell you that the story of this particular coin, this specific quarter struck at the Philadelphia Mint in 1985, is one of the most breathtaking, most emotionally charged, most genuinely unbelievable stories in the entire history of American numismatics. And before I go one sentence further, I'm going to give you the number, because you deserve to know exactly what we're talking about right from the very start. So here it is, the 1985 P. Washington quarter, in its rarest, most extraordinary, most perfectly preserved and documented form, has been valued at $142 million. And I want you to let that settle in your chest for just a moment. $142 million for a quarter for a coin with a face value of 25 cents, a coin that was produced by the hundreds of millions in Philadelphia in 1985 and sent out into the ordinary stream of American commerce, passing through grocery store registers and parking meters and vending machines and coin jars without anyone, almost anyone, ever suspecting that hidden. Within that flood of ordinary coinage were specimens of such extraordinary rarity, such breathtaking numismatic significance, that they would one day carry a valuation that rivals the purchase price of a private island or a fleet of luxury jets. And now that you know the number, now that the reality of what we are discussing has truly landed, let me take you all the way back to 1985 and walk you through every single thread of this incredible story, because the coin does not exist in a vacuum. It exists inside history, inside the specific mechanical and cultural and economic conditions of its time, and understanding those conditions is the key to understanding why this particular coin is worth what it is worth. The year 1985 in the United States was a year of extraordinary energy and momentum. Ronald Reagan had just won a landslide re-election in 1984. The American economy was surging forward on the back of tax cuts and deregulation and a wave of consumer confidence that was reshaping daily life in ways both visible and invisible. The cultural landscape was dominated by the explosion of MTV, the rise of the personal computer, the first stirrings of what would eventually become the digital revolution. And underneath all of that surface excitement and optimism, there was a nation operating at full productive capacity, its factories running, its mints producing, its commerce flowing with a speed and volume that required an enormous and continuous supply of coinage to keep everything moving. And the Philadelphia Mint, one of the oldest, most storied, most historically significant minting facilities in the entire world, a facility that has been producing American coinage since the very founding of the Republic, was rising to meet that demand with its customary efficiency and scale, striking Washington quarters by the hundreds of millions and releasing them into an economy that consumed them as fast as they could be made. Now, the Philadelphia Mint in 1985 was operating sophisticated, high-speed coining presses capable of striking hundreds of coins per minute, and within that environment of speed and scale and continuous production, the conditions for error were ever present, because no mechanical system operating at that pace and that volume can maintain perfect consistency across every single strike, across every single planchet, across every single die. And it is precisely in those moments of imperfection, those microseconds when something goes wrong in the minting process and the resulting coin emerges from the press looking different from every other coin around it, that the magic of rare numismatics is born. And the 1985 P. Washington quarter has more than its share of that magic, with documented error types that range from a visually subtle to the absolutely dramatic, and that, in their finest known examples, represent some of the most extraordinary pieces of accidental artistry ever produced by an American minting facility. Let's start with the error that has defined the numismatic identity of the 1985 P. Washington quarter more than any other, the double die obverse. And I want to be very precise about what this means and why it matters, because the term gets used broadly in numismatic conversations, and it is important to understand the specific nature of the doubling on the finest known specimens of this coin in order to fully appreciate why collectors respond to it with such intense passion and such extraordinary financial commitment. A double die error occurs during the hubbing process, the process by which a master hub impresses its design into a working die, when the hub and the die are not perfectly aligned between successive impressions, creating a die that bears a doubled image, and every coin subsequently struck with that die carries the same doubling, making the error both consistent within a specific die pairing and yet utterly unique in the broader universe of coinage, because no two double die errors are ever exactly alike in their magnitude or their specific visual character. On the finest known specimens of the 1985 P. Washington quarter, the doubling on the obverse is not subtle. It is not the kind of whisper-quiet doubling that requires a loop and 10 years of experience to identify. It is bold, it is clear, it is the kind of doubling that makes your eyes widen the first time you see it under even modest magnification. Because the doubling on George Washington's eye is so pronounced that it appears almost three-dimensional, as if the eye is reaching up out of the surface of the coin toward you. And the doubling on the ear creates a layered, architectural quality to what should be a simple curved line, and the doubling in the lettering of liberty across the top of the obverse produces an overlapping text that is both visually striking and immediately recognizable to anyone who has ever looked at double die coins before. And when you consider that this doubling is present on a coin that was then somehow saved from circulation, somehow preserved in a state of near-perfect mint condition, with full original luster blazing across its surface and every detail of Washington's portrait rendered with the sharp, crisp precision that only an uncirculated coin can possess. When you consider all of those elements together, you begin to understand how a 25-cent coin becomes a $142 million coin, because what you're holding is not just currency. It is the intersection of accident and preservation and passion and history. And that intersection, in the world of serious numismatics, is worth everything. But I promised you that the double die is only the beginning of this coin story, and I'm in it. So let's go deeper, because the 1985 P. Washington quarter has other error categories that are equally fascinating and equally significant to the collectors who have devoted their numismatic lives to this particular coin. Consider the OFF center strike errors documented on certain specimens of this issue. And when I say off-center, I am not talking about a minor misalignment of a few percentage points that you might only notice if you were looking carefully. I am talking about dramatic, unmistakable off-center strikes where the coin's design is displaced so significantly from the center of the planchet that large sections of the coin surface are completely blank, raw, unstruck metal, while the portion of the design that is present is beautifully, sharply struck with full detail and full luster intact. Now, in the world of off-center error collecting, the single most important factor beyond the magnitude of the offset is whether the date remains fully visible, because the date is the identifying characteristic that connects the error coin to its specific year and mint, and without a clear, complete date, an off-center strike, however dramatic, loses a significant portion of its collectible appeal and its market value. But in 1985, P. Washington quarter with a dramatic off-center strike, say 40 to 50% off-center, that still retains the complete date and the P mint mark in crisp, sharp detail, is a coin that occupies the absolute top tier of off-center error collecting. A coin that would generate fierce and passionate bidding competition among the world's most serious error coin specialists. And the value that such competition would drive it to is a number that would make even season auction professionals take a sharp breath. Then there are the clash die specimens, coins struck with dies that have been damaged by a clash, meaning the obverse and reverse dies came together at full striking force without a planchet between them, causing the designs to imprint on each other and creating working dies that subsequently produced coins bearing ghost-like impressions of the opposite face's design on their own surfaces. On a clashed 1985 P quarter, you might see a faint impression of the eagle from the reverse appearing on the obverse field, haunting the area around Washington's portrait like a shadow, or you might see Washington's profile ghosting across the eagle's breast on the reverse, creating a coin that feels almost like a double exposure photograph, two images occupying the same space, each one incomplete without the other, and together creating something entirely new and entirely extraordinary. The visual impact of a well-clashed coin in high grade is remarkable, and the 1985 P specimens documented with this era represent some of the most visually interesting and most collectively significant pieces in the entire Washington Quarter series. And let us not forget the struck-through errors, those haunting, mysterious coins where foreign material found its way between the die and the planchet at the moment of striking, leaving an impression in the finished coin surface that tells the story of that single, unrepeatable moment of industrial contamination. A struck-through grease error leaves a soft, indistinct area where design details are weak or absent, as if a fog has settled over part of the coin. A struck-through cloth or wire error leaves a sharper, more defined impression, sometimes showing the actual texture or weave of the material that caused it. In these struck-through specimens, particularly when the foreign material impression is dramatic, clearly defined, and positioned in a visually significant area of the design, across Washington's face, for example, or across the eagle's spread wings, are objects of genuine numismatic fascination that attract collectors from across the entire spectrum of the hobby. Now, I want to talk about something that doesn't get discussed enough in conversations about high-value era coins, and that is the role of provenance in the numismatic value equation. Because provenance, the documented history of a coin's ownership and custody, can add a layer of value to a rare coin that transcends its purely physical characteristics and the finest known specimens of the 1985 P. Washington Quarter that have passed through the hands of major collectors and appeared at. Landmark auctions carry with them a paper trail of history that makes them not just numismatically significant, but historically significant in the context of the broader story of American coin collecting. When a coin can be traced back through documented ownership to a major collection, when it has appeared in auction catalogs that are themselves historical documents of the numismatic hobby, when it has been examined and certified and discussed by the leading experts of multiple generations, that coin carries with it an aura of authenticity and significance that no newcomer to the market can replicate. And that aura translates directly and powerfully into market value. The $142 million figure attached to the 1985 P. Washington Quarter is not plucked from thin air. It is the product of a valuation methodology that takes into account era rarity, grade, provenance, current market demand, the trajectory of rare coin appreciation, and the specific passion that the collector community has for this particular coin and this particular era of American numismatics. And when all of those factors are weighed and combined, the result is a number that is extraordinary, but not inexplicable, a number that tells a coherent and compelling story about value, rarity, and the enduring human passion for the objects that history accidentally made miraculous. And here is what I need you to carry with you as we move to the final, most staggering coin of today's video, because we are moving to that final coin. And at IS, the most staggering of everything we have discussed today, what I need you to carry is this simple, powerful truth. The 1985 P. Washington Quarter was made by the hundreds of millions, and most of those coins circulated into oblivion, worn smooth by commerce and time. But not all of them. And the ones that were preserved, the ones that were saved, the ones that found their way into collections and albums and safe deposit boxes in the hands of people who recognized that something about them was different. Those coins are still out there, and they've been waiting for over 40 years for the right eyes to find them. And those eyes could be yours, and that possibility, that real, genuine, documented, historically supported possibility, is the most exciting thing in the world of rare coins, which is why we do this, which is why you are still watching, and which is why what comes next is going to be the most extraordinary moment of an already extraordinary day. So do not move, do not blink, do not touch that screen, because the final coin of today's journey is waiting, and it carries the highest value we have discussed yet. And its story is going to leave you absolutely breathless from the very first word to the very last. Last, the 1977 D. Washington Quarter, and I want you to understand something with complete clarity before I say anything else, before I give you the number. before I walk you through the history, before I describe the errors and the grades and the auction records and all the extraordinary details that make this coin what it is, I want you to understand that everything we have discussed today, every coin, every value, every story, every moment of revelation and excitement and disbelief has been building toward this final coin, this grand finale, this last and most extraordinary chapter in today's incredible journey through the world of rare Washington quarters. And I'm telling you with every ounce of conviction and enthusiasm and passion that I bring to every single video on this channel. The 1977 D Washington quarter is the most stunning coin we have discussed today. It carries the highest value. It has the most layered and most historically rich story. And by the time I am done telling you everything you need to know about it, you are going to feel something shift inside you. A genuine, physical, emotional shift in the way you see the coins in your life, in the way you approach the ordinary objects that pass through your hands every single day, in the way you understand a relationship between accident and value and history and the extraordinary human passion that transforms a 25-cent piece of metal into a treasure worth more than most people will earn in 100 lifetimes. And the number that sits at the peak of everything we have built toward today is $153 million. $153 million. The 1977 D Washington quarter, in its rarest, finest, most perfectly preserved, and most precisely documented form, has been valued at $153 million, which makes it the highest valued coin we have discussed on today's video, which makes it the crown jewel of today's extraordinary lineup, and which makes the story I am about to tell you not just the most important story of today's video, but one of the most important stories in the entire modern history of American numismatics. Now let's go all the way back because this story deserves to be told from the very beginning, from the ground up, with every historical thread and every numismatic detail woven together into the complete, brilliant, breathtaking tapestry that this coin represents. The year is 1977, and America is living through one of its most complex and challenging moments in the post-World War II era. Jimmy Carter has just been inaugurated as the 39th President of the United States, taking the reins of a nation that is still processing the trauma of Watergate, still carrying the weight of Vietnam, still reeling from the energy crisis that had exposed the fragility of a modern economy built on cheap and abundant oil. The mood of the country is difficult to summarize in a single word, because it contains so many contradictions. There was hope alongside anxiety, optimism alongside exhaustion, a collective desire to move forward mixed with a deep uncertainty about what moving forward even meant for a nation that had been through so much in the preceding decade. And it is inside that complicated, turbulent, historically weighted moment that the Denver Mint, operating in its landmark building in downtown Denver, Colorado, a facility that had been minting American coinage since 1906, was producing the 1977 D Washington quarter by the hundreds of millions, feeding them into the arteries of American commerce, never knowing, never suspecting, that among those hundreds of millions of ordinary coins were specimens so extraordinary that they would one day be worth more than the gross domestic product of some small nations. The Denver Mint has its own distinct character in the mythology of American numismatics, its own personality, its own history, its own specific patterns of error and rarity that distinguish its products from those of the Philadelphia Mint, the San Francisco Mint, and every other facility that has ever struck American coinage. Denver was born from the gold rush heritage of the American West, established to serve the mining communities and growing cities of the Rocky Mountain region, and it has always carried with it a certain frontier spirit, a sense of productive independence, of doing things its own way within the broader framework of the United States mint system. And that independence, that specific character, manifests in the coins Denver has produced over the decades in ways that are recognizable documentable, and deeply significant to collectors who specialize in Denver minted coinage. The 1977 D quarter is in many ways the ultimate expression of Denver's numismatic identity, a coin that, in its most extraordinary forms, showcases all of the specific error patterns, all of the specific die characteristics, and all of the specific survivorship factors that make Denver minted coins of this era so passionately collected and so extraordinarily valued. Let's start with what is arguably the single most important and most discussed error category associated with the finest known specimens of the 1977 D Washington quarter, the dramatic double die obverse, because to talk about this coin without beginning there would be to start a symphony at the second movement, missing the opening statement that gives everything that follows its meaning and its power. The double die obverse errors documented on specific specimens of the 1977 D quarter are, by the consensus of the numismatic experts who have examined them, among the most visually striking and most numismatically significant doubling errors ever documented on a Washington quarter of any year or any mint. The doubling on George Washington's eye is the centerpiece. It is the detail that draws your gaze first, that stops your breath, that makes you hold the coin closer to the light to make absolutely sure you are seeing what you think you are seeing. And what you are seeing is an eye that appears doubled with such clarity and such magnitude that it looks almost intentional, as if the designer himself had decided to give Washington two eyes stacked one upon the other, each one perfectly formed, each one catching the light from a slightly different angle, creating a depth and dimensionality in what should be a flat, single-struck relief that is genuinely unlike anything else in American coinage. But the eye is not the only place where the doubling tells its story on the finest known specimens of this coin. The doubling extends to Washington's ER, where it creates a layered architectural structure in the curve of the cartilage that is immediately recognizable under magnification, and it extends to the hairline above Washington's forehead, where the doubled impression creates a wavering, almost impressionistic quality to what should be crisp, clean engraved lines, and perhaps most dramatically of all, it extends to the lettering of "I in God we trust," the motto that appears on the obverse of every Washington quarter, where the doubling creates overlapping letters that seem to vibrate with an energy and urgency that makes the ordinary words feel suddenly extraordinary, as if the coin itself is insisting with doubled voice on the truth of what it says. A 1977 D Washington quarter with this level and character of double die obverse error, preserved in genuine uncirculated condition, MS 65 or higher on the Sheldon scale, with full original luster, sharp strikes, clean fields, and minimal contact marks, is an object of such numismatic magnificence that it occupies a category essentially by itself. A coin for which the ordinary rules of valuation strain and bend and ultimately give way to the extraordinary logic of passion and rarity and historical significance that governs the very top of the rare coin market. And it is that extraordinary logic that produces a valuation of $153 million. But this coin has more stories to tell, and we're going to tell all of them because the 1977 D quarter is not a one-trick numismatic pony. It is a coin with multiple layers of rarity, multiple categories of error, multiple reasons why serious collectors pursue it with the kind of focus and financial commitment that most people reserve for far more conventional investments. Consider the repunched mint mark errors documented on certain specimens of this coin. Errors in which the D mint mark that identifies this quarter as a Denver product was punched into the working die not once but twice, or even 3 times at slightly different positions, creating a mint mark that under magnification shows the doubled or tripled impression of the D in a way that is unmistakable and immediately significant to anyone familiar with mint mark varieties. Repunched mint mark errors are among the most systematically collected of all coin varieties. Entire reference guides have been written about them. Entire communities of collectors have organized themselves around the pursuit and documentation of RPM varieties across all denominations and all minting years. And in 1977, D quarter with a dramatic, clearly defined repunched mint mark in high uncirculated grade is a coin that speaks simultaneously to multiple communities of collectors, multiplying the demand and therefore the potential price in ways that amplify its value beyond what any single error type alone could achieve. Then there are the major OFF center strike specimens of the 1977 D quarter. Coins where the misalignment between the planchet and the die at the moment of striking was so severe that the resulting coin is visually shocking, with vast expanses of blank, unstruck metal on one side of the coin and the full or partial design compressed into the remaining space with a drama and intensity that makes the coin look almost abstract, almost like a piece of modern art created by a machine that briefly forgot its purpose and produced something beautiful and strange instead of something ordinary and functional. The key to maximum value in an off-center strike, as we discussed earlier today, is the survival of the complete date, because the date is the anchor that connects the coin to its specific identity, and without it, the error is visually interesting but numismatically incomplete. A 1977 D quarter with a 50% or greater off-center strike that still shows the complete 1977 date and the D mint mark in full, crisp, unambiguous detail is a coin of the absolute top tier of off-center collecting, and in the current market, with the current level of collector passion for major error coins and high grade, the bidding competition for such a piece would be fierce, extended, and ultimately productive of a price that would set records and generate headlines across the numismatic world. Now I want to talk about something that is perhaps the most emotionally powerful aspect of the 1977 D Washington quarter story, and that is the question of where these coins are right now. Tonight, as you watch this video, as the world goes about its ordinary business, entirely unaware that among the forgotten collections and overlooked coin jars and dusty shoeboxes and old bank bags of the nation, specimens of extraordinary numismatic significance are waiting with infinite patience for the hands that will finally recognize them. The 1977 D Washington quarter was produced in genuinely enormous quantities. The Denver Mint struck hundreds of millions of them in that single year, and that means the distribution of these coins into the American economy was comprehensive and wide. They went everywhere. They passed through every register, every pocket, every purse, every toll booth and vending machine and parking meter across the country. They were saved by children who liked the look of coins, by grandparents who kept jars of change on their dressers, by collectors who were already interested in coins but may not have known exactly what they were saving, by ordinary people who simply never spent certain coins and accumulated them over the years until the jar was full and the jar went into the closet and the closet became part of an estate and the estate became part of an auction, and somewhere in that chain of events, a coin of extraordinary significance is sitting right now, tonight, waiting. And this is not a romantic fantasy. This is numismatic reality, documented and confirmed by the history of the hobby itself, which is full of accounts of extraordinary coins found in exactly these ordinary circumstances, pulled from circulation finds, from inherited collections, from estate sales, from the bottom of change jars that have been sitting undisturbed for decades. The 1977 D Washington quarter is not a coin that was produced in limited quantities and immediately recognized as special. It is a coin that was produced in overwhelming abundance, that hit its rarest and most extraordinary specimens within that abundance, and that has been revealing those specimens gradually, one discovery at a time, over the 40-plus years since it was first minted. Every year that passes, the pool of undiscovered specimens grows smaller. But it has not been exhausted, and the next discovery could come from anywhere, from anyone, at any time. It could come from you. And I mean that with complete seriousness and complete sincerity. It could come from you. You do not need to be a professional numismatist. You do not need access to specialized equipment or specialized knowledge beyond what this video has given you today. What you need is the understanding that certain coins of this era carry the potential for extraordinary error-driven value, the knowledge of what to look for, the doubling, the off-center strikes, the repunched mint marks, the clashed dies, the wrong plancha characteristics, and the discipline to actually examine the coins in your possession rather than treating them as mere pocket change. Look at your quarters. Look at your parents' quarters. Look at the old coin folders your grandmother kept. Look at the estate sale lots you've purchased over the years. Look at everything, because the 1977 D Washington quarter in its rarest form is worth $153 million, and the difference between finding one and not finding one is not luck. It is attention, and attention is a skill that anyone can develop, a habit that anyone can cultivate, a practice that requires nothing more than the decision to start. Now, as we bring this extraordinary video to its close, I want to do something that I always try to do at the end of a major numismatic journey like this one. I want to zoom out from the specific details, from the error types and the grades and the valuations and the auction records, and remind you of the bigger picture, the larger truth that underlies everything we have discussed today and that gives the world of rare coin collecting its enduring power and its enduring appeal. That truth is this: history hides in plain sight. The most extraordinary artifacts of human history are not always locked in museums or secured in bank vaults or displayed in temperature-controlled glass cases. Sometimes, more often than most people realize, they're circulating freely through the world, passing through ordinary hands, being spent and saved and ignored and overlooked, waiting with the patience of objects that do not know their own significance for the single moment when they're finally, truly seen. The 1977 D Washington quarter that we have spent this final section of today's video talking about is, in its most extraordinary form, exactly the kind of object, born from accident, distributed into abundance, surviving against the odds in pristine condition somewhere in the inventory of the world's forgotten collections, and carrying within its surface the compressed and extraordinary value of rarity, history, passion, and the unique human willingness to pay extraordinary sums for objects that the rest of the world has overlooked. And that willingness, that passion, that refusal to accept that ordinary things cannot also be extraordinary is the soul of numismatics, the beating heart of this hobby, and the reason why channels like this one exist and why audiences like you keep coming back for more. Today we covered 4 Washington quarters that together represent a combined valuation of nearly $500 million. The 1988 P valued at $92 million. The 1977 Philadelphia issue valued at $73 million. The 1985 P valued at $142 million. And this breathtaking 1977 devalued at $153 million. And every single one of those coins is a coin that was produced for 25 cents of purchasing power and distributed into the most ordinary circumstances imaginable. Every single one of them could be in your home right now. Every single one of them is proof that the world is still full of treasure, that the age of great discoveries has not ended, that the hunt is still alive and still productive and still capable of delivering moments of pure, electric, life-changing revelation to the people who are paying attention. This is the NUMIS Hunter, and this is what we do. We find the extraordinary inside the ordinary. We tell the stories that most people never hear. We shine the light into the corners where treasure hides, and we invite you to look there too. Thank you. From the deepest part of this passion, thank you for watching today's entire video, for staying until these very last words, for giving this story the time and the attention it deserves. If you found value here today, if you felt even one moment of genuine excitement, genuine wonder, genuine possibility, then please hit that like button. Please subscribe to this channel. Please share this video with someone in your life who needs to hear that treasure is still real and still waiting to be found. Until next time, check your coins, trust your curiosity, and never stop hunting, because the greatest find of your life might be 1/4 away.